And please don't be offended if I mute you. I just want to make sure that each of our speakers do not get interrupted. So we want this to be a two-way conversation, but I do ask that you mute yourself during our speaker presentations. So with that said, I think I'm going to hand things off to Paula DeBecke, who is our chapter president for Cleveland, and go from there. So Paula, please take it away.
Good morning and welcome everybody. I'm so glad we can finally meet after such a long time, albeit virtually. Even though I miss the fellowship of meeting all of you in person, meeting virtually is still a great way to stay in touch and spread information. Plus, it really solves transportation issues for so many of us, including myself, who don't drive. For anyone new or anyone who does not already know me, I'm Paula DeBecke. Currently, I'm president of the Cleveland chapter of the Foundation Fighting Blindness. So I just want to give you a little brief history about my beginnings and involvement with FFB. So my involvement with FFB started years ago. Somehow my mom heard about some planning meeting for the first ever Cleveland Vision Walk. We didn't know what a vision walk was, and we really didn't even know what FFB was all about. Nonetheless, my mom, my husband Greg, and I attended that meeting more than a dozen years ago. At that first meeting, we met so many great people and got tons of information. Prior to that, I really didn't know anyone other than my brother who was experiencing vision loss. After that meeting, I was hooked. And since then, I've been involved, dedicated, and grateful for the mission of FFB. My brother, my son, and I are all affected by retinitis pigmentosa. However, my daughters, who are not affected, and my fantastic husband have been very active in our chapter too. Our chapter is a friendly group of people. We welcome anyone affected with vision loss or not, friends and family. We even welcome folks who just want to help a great cause. By growing our chapter, we can grow awareness and discover new resources. Please help us spread the word about FFB. FFB is truly a beacon of hope for me and my family. FFB has been going strong for 50 years now. The mission remains the same: to fund research to find prevention, treatments, and cures for inherited retinal diseases. Well, we've got a couple.
Not inherited, how about all of them?
Perfect, thank you for correcting me. Well, we've got a couple great speakers and lots of information for you today. So Allie, I'm gonna turn the stage over to you. Thanks again, everyone, for joining us today.
Thank you, Paula. All right, so I will be sharing my screen momentarily to go over a few slides, but as Paula mentioned, my name is Allie Sarwark. I'm the chapter engagement manager for the Midwest region, and I wanna, let's see, there we go over a few things on what the foundation is doing. There we go. Got too excited. Okay. So starting with our track record, the Foundation Fighting Blindness is the world's leading organization committed to finding treatments and cures for retinal diseases. Going into that, 100, I always say 100, it's much more than that, 816 million has been raised to support and advance research that will reverse blindness and restore vision since our inception in 1971. Last year, the foundation received 82 grants. This includes over 90 investigators and 67 institutions, eye hospitals, and university. Going off of that, the foundation has funded studies at several hundreds of prominent institutions throughout the world. This includes Wilmer Eye Institute, Johns Hopkins University School of Medicine, Institut de la Vision in Paris, France, Mooresfield Eye Hospital, University College London, and Shea Eye Institute, University of Pennsylvania. And to give you a little idea, we also have had several breakthroughs, including Lexterna, which is the first gene therapy for the eye, as well as Argus 2, which is the FDA-approved retinal prosthesis. Moving on to the next slide, inherited retinal disease landscape. Over 200,000 people in the US have a rare inherited retinal disease, also known as IRDs. This number increases to over 4.5 million when speaking about it globally. 10 million people in the US are affected with age-related macular degeneration. And once again, this number increases dramatically to 150 million globally. One thing that we're really excited about in the terms of what the foundation is doing is that we have 45 clinical trials underway or either being prepared to launch for potential treatments. The next slide is about identifying inherited retinal diseases, and funding has been a driving force behind the progress towards cures. And that includes the identification of more than 270 genes linked to retinal diseases, and the launch, as I mentioned in the previous slide, of 45 clinical trials. To break it down a little bit for you, the 270 plus, so 65 genes are connected to retinitis pigmentosa, 21 genes are connected to Stargardt disease, 14 genes are connected to Leber amaurosis, and then 15 genes are connected to Usher syndrome. And then all the other genes that were not mentioned are other retinal diseases. So this next slide has a lot going on, but I'm proud to say that because it's our signature programs and initiatives of what the Foundation Fighting Blindness is doing. You know, our mission statement is driving the research, but what does that exactly mean? Going from left to right, I'll start with that we have over 40 volunteer-led chapters. So these dedicated volunteers raise funds, increase public awareness, and provide support to families affected by retinal diseases in our community. So I truly want to thank Paula, Antoinette, and Sandy for all that they're doing and taking on the leadership roles that they have. And you'll be hearing from all of them in terms of speaker introductions today. Next is the clinical consortium, which includes over 20 clinical centers of excellence with experience in IRDs and with standardizing assessment protocols. We also have our RD fund, which was launched just a few years ago. This is a retinal disease venture philanthropy fund, which drives emerging therapies that are moving forward or in clinical trials. My Retina Tracker, this is one I want to make sure everyone who is affected to be aware of. We have a global, free, secure, easy to use, patient-controlled patient registry with over 10,000 patients, and profiles. So if you are affected, this will help you find how to get tested or just be a part of any clinical trials if you are interested in being involved with that. Lastly, lastly, we have a bunch more. We have grants and awards, which that supports our clinical trials and preclinical research that's applicable to a broad range of retinal degenerative diseases. We also have biobonds, which that is an advocacy, or these are advocacy opportunities for advancing new studies, so also known as loans for Biomedical Research Act. We also have Visions, which is providing a learning environment through conferences, seminars, and workshops So you can think of it as a more in-depth speaker series. So what we're doing today, but more in depth, and it goes over a couple days, and we have a huge panel of experts. We also have dinner, galas, and events. So this is a variety of custom, unique events in each city around the nation to raise awareness and research funds. So this also includes our new campaign called Raising Our Sights, and this is DIY events. Lastly, on this the screen is our Vision Walk events. So we have over 35, and I hope many of you are already aware and have participated. But it's raised more than 58 million since the first one in spring 2006. So I want to give a huge thank you to our national partners, which includes our visionary champions, Genentech and Janssen, our gold outreach partners, AGTC and Editas Medicine, and lastly, our silver outreach partners, Apellis, Astellas, Biogen, Mira GTX, and Spark Therapeutics. So if anything that I said today connected with you, we really want you to get involved. Please reach out to me or just anyone, any contact that you have at the foundation. There's many ways to get involved, whether it be a part of the chapter, joining our leadership team, or just being a part of the Vision Walk, or just really anything. If you can think of something that you'd like to be a part of, we're open to any unique idea and want to make sure that you can be a part of the foundation. So with that said, this is my last slide. My name, once again, is Ali Sarwark. My email is asarwark@fightingblindness.org. An easier email is chapters@fightingblindness.org if you have any feedback or just comments in general, or would like to get involved. So with that said, I'm going to stop sharing my screen and hand things off to Antoinette.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Antoinette Morrison, the Revenue Chair of the Cleveland Chapter, and I'm here to introduce the education speaker today. I am introducing Dr. Bela Anand-Apte with the Cleveland Clinic Foundation. Dr. Anand-Apte is the Professor of Ophthalmology and Molecular Medicine at the Cleveland Clinic Lerner College of Medicine at Case Western Reserve University. She joined the Cole Eye Institute at the Cleveland Clinic Foundation in September 2000 and currently serves as Chair of Ophthalmic Research. Her research team is interested in exploring the basic biological mechanisms of neovascularization, with special emphasis on neovascularization in Sorsby fundus dystrophy, age-related macular degeneration, and diabetic retinopathy. Dr. Anand-Apte received her MD degree from King Edward Memorial Hospital and Bombay University in India. Having developed an interest in research, she completed a Ph.D. degree in immunology and microbiology from the Boston University School of Medicine in Boston, Massachusetts. A brief postdoctoral fellowship in the Department of Cell and Developmental Biology at Harvard University was followed by a research associate position at Children's Hospital in Boston in the Department of Surgical Research. It was here that Dr. Anand-Apte developed her interest in understanding the basic molecular mechanisms of angiogenesis. She has received the Karen Grunbaum Award for Research in Cancer, the Tom Sandy Trudell Research Award for the Study of Retinal Degenerative Diseases, awarded through the Foundation Fighting Blindness, and the Lou Wasserman Award from RPB. Research from her laboratory has led to the understanding of novel functions for matrix metalloproteinase and their inhibitors in neovascularization and its implications in inherited retinal dystrophies and age-related macular degeneration. A more recent focus on regulation of the blood-retinal barrier in diabetic retinopathy is providing interesting insights into the loss of vision in diabetes. The ultimate goal is an improved understanding of ocular pathologies that lead to blindness. Dr. Anand-Apte has a strong commitment to improving diversity in the biomedical science research field and has played a pivotal role in establishing programs at the Cleveland Clinic to reach this goal. So without further ado, I am going to turn things over to Dr. Anand-Apte.
Thank you, Antoinette, and thank you, Ali. Can everyone hear me?
Yes,
Okay, and you see my slides?
correct.
Okay, awesome. So as Antoinette mentioned, I do some research on vision disorders at the Cola Institute. And for those of you that don't know, this is located close to Case Western Reserve University. On the left is the Cola Institute building. And then we do have a lot of affiliation with Lerner Research Institute at the Cleveland Clinic Foundation. So just as an introduction, our mission is much like Foundation Fighting Blindness. It's to conduct fundamental research on the eye at basic translational clinical levels, and we're hoping to find new and improved therapies to cure eye diseases. And our second mission is to educate and develop leaders in ophthalmology and vision who are driven to, again, like us, prevent and or treat vision disorders through scientific innovation and discovery. So what I thought I'd do today is, instead of talking about my research and getting to it at a granular level, is paint a picture for you about how does one go about finding cures for eye diseases, or actually any disease in general. And the way I look at it, it is a journey that starts in the clinic, goes to the bench or a laboratory, and then ends back at the clinic. And it's a collaborative effort between doctors, patients, researchers, and then goes back to the clinic again with all three playing a role. So just to put this into, summarize this, is the first time a patient goes to a doctor, an ophthalmologist, and says, I have problems seeing. Now, let's say this happened, at least in the case of age-related macular degeneration, the first time someone went to a patient was in the 1800s. That's a long time ago, right? So the patient goes in, the doctor, depending on the tools available at the time, will look into the eye. If it's something they've never seen before, they'll sort of, put it down, put it on paper. And then the more patients they see or that others see, they start talking about it and saying, oh, this is, a different disease, something we haven't seen before. Well, so you need enough patients for doctors to sort of come to some sort of consensus that this is a disease affecting many people. And then there's talk between the researchers and the doctors, and the researchers can go into the lab and look more carefully at what could possibly be causing this disease. And then they work together and try and find what can we do to either prevent the formation of this disease pathology or to cure it once it's happened. And once a drug is formed, it then goes back to the clinic, and then we need the patients again to collaborate to test if these drugs have any effect. Okay, so that's the journey that we go through. And so just to start, like I'm sure most of you know, but I just want to go through very basic description of vision. Like, how do we see? How do our eyes work? So on the left here, let me see, make sure you can see my pointer. Right. So on the left here is just a drawing of the eye. This is the front of the eye, and this is the back of the eye, the part that you can't see. So light enters through here. This is the cornea. There's a lens that acts sort of like a magnifying glass that focuses the image. And the image is focused on this back region of the eye that's called the retina. So think of it just as a camera, and the image is falling here in the back of the eye. But this image, it's just a light signal that falls on the back of the eye. It has to get converted into chemical and neural signals that is transmitted through the optic nerve and into the brain. And then the brain further processes this, and that's what we see. So it's a complicated process. Now, when a doctor looks, an ophthalmologist looks into your eye, this is what he sees. He sees the retina right at the back of the eye. This is called the optic nerve, and that's what is going to take all the information from the retina and transport it to the brain. And these arcades of vessels that you see here is the blood supply to the retina that is basically feeding the retina. Now the retina, I'm biased, but I think the retina is absolutely magnificent tissue. And it is a window not just into the eye, but into a number of other diseases. We can diagnose a whole bunch of diseases that like, for instance, hypertension, by just looking at the fundus. So I think it's a window into the body. And on the right, I'm not going to go into this in great detail, but this is, if we took a section of the retina, it's made up of a number of different cell types. And just to give you perspective, this sclera, this is the white part of your eye. These vessels here are nourishing a layer of cells called the RPE. Now this region here is what is affected in AMD, or age-related macular degeneration. The photoreceptors, this is the business end of the retina. These are the cells that are detecting light, converting it into chemical signals, and this is that providing the image that is then sent to the brain. Okay, and these vessels here are the retinal vessels, the vessels that you're seeing in this image here. So that's how we see every cell type in this retina has to work perfectly for us to be able to see well. And this is what we work with, right? So we can take retinas, obviously from either animals or post-mortem tissue. We can make sections of them, and we can look at all these cell types to say, are they normal or are they abnormal? And then draw conclusions about disease from this. Okay, so in terms of patients, what happens if you have age-related macular degeneration? For the purpose of this presentation, I'm really only going to focus mostly on age-related macular degeneration and a little bit on retinitis pigmentosa. So if you have age-related macular degeneration, if you had normal vision, you would see this scene here, which is a long time ago. These are my kids doing a very unique soccer move. But if you had AMD and had lost vision, you would lose central vision. The central part of your vision is a blur. You can see pretty well in the periphery, but you might miss out on the central part of vision. On the other hand, if you had retinitis pigmentosa, you generally tend to lose your peripheral vision first. So you wouldn't see this image here. You might start to see just blurring on the outside of your visual field, and then that slowly closes in, and it's called tunnel vision, getting tunnel vision. And what does a doctor see? So when you go in, so that's, you would go in and you would tell your ophthalmologist, I'm seeing blurry spots in the center of my visual field. I have to move my eyes to see the image clearly, or you might say I've got tunnel vision, right? So the doctor, when you go into your ophthalmologist, you're going to look into your eye, into the fundus, and he can make a pretty good diagnosis or an estimation of what is going on. So if you suffer from age-related macular degeneration, you would see, instead of this beautiful fundus image, clear blood vessels, a clear retina, you might, the ophthalmologist might see these yellow deposits. We call them drusen. I'll talk a little bit more about that later. If you had dry form of age-related macular degeneration. And then there's a wet form of macular degeneration that is responsible really for 80% vision loss in the disease. And that's when there's blood vessels leaking and scarring. And that's what the ophthalmologist would see. If you had retinitis pigmentosa, then the ophthalmologist would see these pigmented areas in the periphery and some loss of retina as well. So the ophthalmologist, based on these images, can make a diagnosis of what's going on in a patient's eyes. So let's start with, I'm really going to focus a lot on history of age-related macular degeneration to give you a sense of what it takes to get from understanding a disease to finding a cure or attempting to find a cure. So I wanted to share with you that age-related macular degeneration is a name given to the disease that initially was called senile macular degeneration. And for obvious reasons, that wasn't a very appropriate term. But when the first patient came to an ophthalmologist, and it was in 1800s, they noticed that it was generally older people that came with this disease. And so that's the name they gave to it. And thankfully, that name has changed. So what ophthalmologists noticed were these deposits in the retina. When they looked into the retina, they saw these deposits that today we call drusen. But in those days, it was given a number of different names. They were called colloid bodies, colloid balls, ball-shaped drusenoid bodies, warty growths of the choroid. And then in 1856, it was given the name drusen. So this was first described in 1854 by an ophthalmologist called Wedel, but he had no idea where these deposits came from, what they indicated. And this remained obscure for over a long period of time. So in 1856, this was termed druze, and this druze came from the German word for geode. It's a cavity rock filled with crystals. And that's what this looked like to them. Now, the pathogenic process for AMD is still not clear, right? It's generally accepted that there are changes in this pigment epithelial and choriocapillaris and Bruch's membrane, but a lot is not known. So in fact, when they first saw images of patients with this disease, here's an image from one of the drawings from an ophthalmologist where he kind of drew what he thought was going on. And then right about that time, ophthalmologists realized that there was a gap in understanding of what ophthalmologists saw when they looked at a fundus picture in a live person, and then what detail they could get from postmortem tissue. So there was an ophthalmologist called Donders, again in the 1800s, and he performed autopsies of eyes from patients who had died, just normal eyes. And then he started a collection of healthy human postmortem eyes to study what normal eyes look like and then what diseased eyes look like when he had an eye from a patient who had died, who had age-related macular degeneration. And this set up a whole series of studies in improving our understanding of eye diseases. Actually, not just eye diseases, but any disease is studying postmortem tissue. So what sorts of studies do we do to kind of get an idea first of what is the disease? What is age-related macular degeneration or retinitis pigmentosa? What kind of studies led to our understanding of this disease? So one of the studies that investigators perform are called epidemiological studies. And these can be divided into observational or experimental. So observational epidemiological studies often start with case reports. Like I said, patient goes in to see an ophthalmologist. He looks at the eye. He says, oh, I've never seen anything like this before. Looks up the literature, can't find anything that looks the same, and writes what we call a case report. And he may see one patient or he may see 5 patients, and he'll write it up. I saw, these patients, this is what they had, this is what the fundus looked like. And he reports it. And as people read it, they realize that they've all seen something like this, right? So different people will write different case reports. So that's the first part of what leads to then someone saying, okay, this is a bigger problem than we think. It's not just a few patients. Let's do a population-based study. So this is a large study. So what somebody will say, I'm going to look at, 10,000, 5,000, 10,000 patients that with age-related macular degeneration. I'm going to compare them to patients who don't have macular degeneration. And I'm going to look to see what is different about these two groups so I can get an understanding of the disease. And they will do this study and they will do questionnaires. And I'm sure most of you have been part of studies like this. And they'll ask you about, your age, whether you smoke or not, what your family history is. And through all these studies, basically what we know about age-related macular degeneration is that there are risk factors. So obviously age is a risk factor. The older you get, the higher you are at risk for getting age-related macular degeneration. If you're a smoker, you're at higher risk for getting AMD. If you have a family history of age-related macular degeneration, then you have there's more likelihood that you will get AMD. Females are more susceptible. Caucasians are more susceptible. If you spend a lot of time in the sun exposure, and you're at high risk, then obviously you should be careful about AMD. Your diet is important. High-fat diets and obesity are strongly correlated with the incidence of age-related macular degeneration, as is high blood pressure and eye color. If you light-colored eyes, you are at higher risk of getting AMD. So based on these, we actually now have preventive treatments. You can do the vitamins, AREDS2 vitamin that will help you to at least slow down the progression of disease. So that's observational epidemiological studies. And now, as we have become better at doing science, and we have more tools that are available to us, we can do experimental epidemiological studies. And these studies would say, take patients, large groups of patients, and then look for gene markers, like what genes are different between patients who have age-related macular degeneration or controls, or patients who have retinitis pigmentosa and controls. And so we've come up with a bunch of different gene mutations that increase the risk of AMD. And people are also looking into biomarkers. So not genes, but can we do a blood test? Can we tell if somebody is at risk for AMD, or how the AMD is progressing? One of the issues we have today is we cannot tell a patient that you are going to develop the wet form of AMD, or your AMD is going to progress really fast. There's no way we can predict that today, but people are looking to see, are there markers in the blood that will help us predict? The genetic studies are a lot cleaner for retinitis pigmentosa because there's a clear inheritance pattern in retinitis pigmentosa. But for AMD, it's a complex genetic disease. So there is no test that says you are going to get AMD. And then we go to the histopathological studies. Like I said, there are collections of eyes, and FFB has really put a lot of effort and energy into developing collections of postmortem eyes that give us a lot of clues about the disease. So here I'm showing you what a section from a postmortem eye would look like in a patient with just early AMD. You see these little purple blobs. These are the drusen. And you can see in a normal eye on the left, it's really clean. It's a clean retina. But here in an AMD eye, you can see these collections. And when we look at a bunch of these eyes, we can draw conclusions. We can map out potential reasons why this disease is progressing. So based on that, I'm not going to go into all the literature that has all the scientists, all the studies that have determined how does this disease progress. But I'm just going to give you a snapshot picture. So this is a schematic of a normal retina. Here are blood vessels, right? Here's the just a membrane called Brooks membrane, layer of cells here called the epithelium, and these are the photoreceptors, the business end of the retina. So if you look at the progression of AMD, here's your normal retina, like I showed you, vision is normal. In early AMD, you see this yellow goop, the ones that we call drusen, starting to collect right here underneath the retina. Okay, this is early AMD. This is, patients, a lot of patients will slowly develop this as they age. And then this is a wet form of AMD. And what happens in this wet form is these blood vessels here suddenly start to proliferate, grow, migrate, and they go on and start basically forming this vessel bed, a very leaky vessel bed underneath the retina. And it's this leakage that causes vision disturbances. Because imagine your light has got to pass through to the retina. So it needs a clear path. We know that if you've got any turbidity, the light rays are going to scatter, right? And we don't want any scattering of the light rays. So if you've got vessels that are leaking, then you're going to have scattering of light rays and you're going to have loss in vision. And what we do know is that there's a protein called VEGF, a vascular endothelial growth factor, that causes these blood vessels to proliferate. And we know all this from studies in these post-mortem tissues, where we can see in eyes that have AMD, there is more VEGF in the eyes. So that's one way of trying to find cures. And now if we find more VEGF, then we'll try and find ways to block the VEGF, right? So, and then the last thing that we do is animal models. So clearly, we just have postmortem tissue and we do epidemiological studies, the studies are just correlative, right? So that means that if I see VEGF in an AMD eye and I don't see it in a normal eye, I'm assuming that the VEGF is playing a role. But to really prove that VEGF is causing the disease, or some part of the disease, I need to have an animal model. And so what's a good animal model for a disease? In this, I'm going to talk about AMD, but in general, any disease. In that I should be able to reproduce that disease in the animal, right? I should replicate the exact clinical phenotype and the pathology that an ophthalmologist sees in humans. It should be uncomplicated, it should be inexpensive so that many people can use this model. I should be able to manipulate it easily. So if I know what causes the disease, I should be able to induce the disease. If I'm testing a treatment, I should be able to prevent the disease. And it should be pretty quick. And this is where the tricky part comes in, because we know macular degeneration is a slow disease, right? It occurs slowly from the age of 55 onwards. But when we do animal models, we really don't have the luxury of waiting such a long time to look for development of disease. So we wanted to recapitulate the disease, but we wanted to be quick. And it should, like what the ophthalmologist sees and what we can see in tissue should be correlated, right? And then we should be able to use this model to test drugs that are developed by the researchers. Okay, so that's a good animal model. I'm going to give you an example of one of the animal models for AMD. So we have a primate model. Actually, this was the first model that was identified for AMD, and or the wet form of AMD, I should say. And if we, just take a laser and we injure the retina of a monkey, we can induce this wet form of AMD in monkeys. Now, again, monkeys is not an easy model to use. They're large animals, and ethically, there are some concerns about using monkeys. And so this model now has been developed for mice and rats. And so that is the model that is currently used for preclinical studies to test drugs that are going to be effective for AMD. And a number of drugs that some of you probably are on, your, bevacizumab or your Lucentis and Avastin were all tested in this model. So once you've got an animal model, you've done your basic studies, and you have something you want to say, I think this should be tested in humans, it has to go through what we call clinical trial. And I just want to give you a sense of what a clinical trial usually encompasses, right? So on the left here, you can see this is preclinical. We do experiments in animals, we do experiments on the bench, and we come up with a potential drug that's going to be helpful for patients with eye disease. It could be retinitis pigmentosa, it could be AMD. They all go through the same phases. The first phase is essentially a safety phase. It's looking for how safe is this drug. Okay, so we usually have about 20 to 80 people in this clinical trial. They are given the drug and we determine if it's going to be safe, if it's safe or not. Are there any side effects, any ill effects on these patients? So we're not really looking for how effective the drug is, although it can be a secondary measure, but predominantly the first phase is to look for safety. And this can take anywhere from 1 to 6 months. Once it passes that phase, and about 70% of drugs that are tested pass through or make it through phase 1. So in phase 2, it's more participants in the trial, so 100 to 300 usually. And this is again testing safety. You can do a dose escalation in this phase. You can give different doses of the drug. And you then also look for efficacy. Efficacy meaning, did it help the patients? Did their vision improve? Did they progress slower? Usually this takes 3 to 18 months. It's a long time period for phase 2. And about 33% of drugs will move through this phase. And then the last phase is phase 3. This is takes a long time, anywhere from 1 to 3 years. And you can go from 1,000 to 3,000 participants. We're looking for efficacy. We're looking always for side effects, safety, and what is the benefit and what is the risk, right, of taking this drug? Is it how much does it improve vision versus what are the side effects of the drug? Okay, so once you get through this, that you got good results, then it goes to the FDA, it has to go through regulatory review, and the FDA has to approve this drug that then gets used in the clinic. Now, we've all heard about this. We've all hopefully taken the vaccine for COVID, and it all went through these phases. But in terms of COVID, it was sort of a shortened period of clinical trial because it was an emergency. Okay, so I'm going to finish up by just giving you a feel for what has been gone through all these phases, what drugs that are currently FDA approved and in the clinic that have gone through all these phases, and then a little flavor of what's in the pipeline. I know you've heard that there are about 45 clinical trials going on for eye diseases. I'm not going to talk about all 45, but I'm going to give you a flavor of what people are testing in clinical trials. So these are Eylea, Lucentis, Avastin, all FDA approved drugs for the wet form of age-related macular degeneration. Beovu is a more recent drug, and it seems to be better because, I wouldn't say better, but you don't have to give that drug as often. Right, so Lucentis, it's obviously every 3 to 4 months or as needed, but the new drug seems to be just maybe 3 to 4 times a year. And then, what are the new treatments for wet AMD that are being looked at? So one of the, if any of you have wet AMD and you're getting these drugs, you know that you have to go in for your injections fairly often. And one of the things that investigators are looking at is how can we treat with anti-VEGF drugs, but have it not as often? And one way is gene therapy. And gene therapy is basically saying we're going to put something in the eye and it's going to make this drug on a regular basis. It doesn't have to keep being injected. So people are looking at gene therapy for these antibodies. They're looking at port delivery systems. So we'll put a little bit of sort of a port in the eye that you just have that will deliver the drug again on a regular basis, and then some new drugs, just that target other things, because it seems like some people, VEGF is very good. It's changed the way we treat AMD, but I think some people don't respond to VEGF, and so there are research investigators looking to see why do some people not respond, and maybe you need to inhibit other targets. And so there are new drugs that are targeting other molecules. So that's faricimab, Cosapt, OPT-302, and then these DARPins are really new. And these are just in various stages of clinical trials, some preclinical and some in phase 1 and 2. Dry AMD has been a little bit of a problem for us. It's been very hard to find a cure or a potential treatment for dry AMD. And that again goes to, we've been trying to understand AMD. It's a very complicated disease. So we're trying our best, but few drugs in clinical trials being tried now. Inflammation has been known to play a role. And so there are drugs that target complement proteins, C3 and C5. And some people are trying stem cells as well. But again, these are very early stage. And, hopefully we keep our fingers crossed that some of them will work. Again, retinitis pigmentosa, we've just heard about FFB playing a role in supporting Luxturna, which is gene therapy for patients with a mutation in RPE65. And I think this has great promise, seems to be having some good effects. So we're really excited about Luxturna. And then it's the August 2, again, that was, supported by FFB. And this is a retinal implant. So this basically puts a retinal chip in the eye so if your photoreceptors are not working, this chip can sense light and send the message to the brain. And so you can see some sort of images. It's never going to be, at least of now with the technology we have, it's not a bright image that a normal vision can see, but you can see shadows and really helpful for people that have severe loss of vision. And then there are a whole bunch of treatments for retinitis pigmentosa in clinical trials. Gene therapy is being pushed and is really, I think, will change the field soon. So there's optogenetic therapy, the gene therapies based on specific genes that are mutated in different retinitis pigmentosa diseases. There's Leber's congenital amaurosis, there's CRISPR therapy, and a new antisense oligonucleotide. And these are just the ones that I think seem exciting. There are many more, and it's not really familiar with all of them. So if I've missed some, it's not that they're not good, it's just that these are the ones that I've read about the most. So I'll end there, just leaving you with hope that there are a lot of drugs in clinical trials. And I want to acknowledge the work done by all investigators, the physicians, the scientists, the pharmaceutical industry. This is a collaborative effort. This is a disease we're all trying to treat, all trying to find cures for. And all these people since the 1800s have slowly improved our understanding of eye diseases. And then more than ever to patients, all of you have contributed your time and eyes to research to allow physicians to include you in clinical trials, include you in understanding the disease. And to all the patients who have died and donated their eyes to research, this is a remarkable resource. And without this, we would not have gotten to where we are. And then finally, all the funding agencies, we need money to do this research. And most of our money comes from NIH and foundations like Foundation Fighting Blindness that is steadfast in its commitment to funding vision research. And I'm grateful, and all of us are grateful to the foundations, to patients for all their efforts in this. So I'll stop there, and I'm happy to take any specific questions you might have.
So I want to make sure that you all know that currently you are on mute. So if you want to unmute yourself or raise your hand or put something in the comments. But thank you so much for that very extensive presentation.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Yes, Grace.
Yes, doctor, the question I have in regards to retinitis pigmentosa, I have retinitis pigmentosa. I did a vial where I sputted for gene therapy, but my gene was the wrong, what was not part of the group that they were looking at. And you mentioned about 65. Could you explain a little bit more? Are there 65 different type of mutations? Is that what I understand? I need clarity on that.
Okay, so yes, so there are 65. So we have identified, or we as in, when I say we, I mean researchers in general, have identified 65 genes that are mutated in patients with retinitis pigmentosa. That doesn't mean that each patient has 65 different mutations, but 65 genes have been associated with. So if a family comes in, let's say a family comes in to the clinic, and we will do a genetic study and look for what mutation is present in this family, right? So you may have RPE65 gene. That's also, RPE65 is one gene. It's just a name given to the gene. Is that what you're asking me?
Yeah,
Yes,
because I thought, goodness, is there
right.
65 different mutations?
There are, so you're right, there are 65 different mutations. But the gene therapy right now that's approved is only for one of those mutations that happens to be called RPE65.
Okay, and like I have recessive link.
Uh-huh.
So it's skipped generation. Amongst 7 other siblings, I'm the only one in the family.
Yeah.
So my question is, in other words, it could be to identify exactly what I have for gene therapy. It could be very rare than even those ones that were able to benefit in the first trial of the gene therapy, they ruled out,
Right.
So it sounds like it's going to take many tries with different genes, different locations. Yeah.
But I will say that actually there are investigators working on gene therapy that would have, so not specific gene therapy. So the way it works is if you've got a bad gene, okay, I'm just going to use the word bad gene or a mutated gene, it's not performing its function like a normal copy of that gene would, right? So what gene therapy does is then just puts in a good copy of that gene, right? So you're making the protein and then the eye will work. Now, but that means that we have to know exactly, we have to have a gene therapy for every gene mutation, right?
Got it.
So what people are now working on is working on gene therapies that will encompass any gene mutation. So they're going downstream. What goes wrong if in the photoreceptors? And can we do a gene therapy that is blinded to what is causing the photoreceptor loss? So people are working on that because they understand that it may be hard to have, I mean, it's expensive and a lot of effort for each gene mutation. That's years and years, right? I mean,
right.
5 years to go from a possible treatment to actual treatment. And so now I think there is a big focus on these therapies that are, you know, it doesn't matter what the gene mutation is. It's going to go something downstream. So there is hope, but people are working on it. You know, so it doesn't matter what the gene thing, but I'm
So
sorry.
it's the
right now it's just-
photoreceptor issues. Yeah,
Correct. Yes.
got it. Mhm,
Yeah.
mhm. Thank you.
Sure.
Does anyone else have any questions? I know I have one for myself, so I don't want to interrupt anyone, but I would like to, just for the lay audience, to understand for someone, a loved one who's involved or affected, excuse me, what the difference is between wet AMD and dry AMD. If you could just give us a kind of a general idea of, I believe my general understanding is wet is what you don't want.
Right. So I think it's different ways to look at it, right? Wet, we have a treatment for. So if you have, you don't want any AMD, right? If you have severe vision loss and you have the wet form of AMD, we now have treatments for that. Okay, it's temporary and you have to go in for them on a regular basis, but we can treat the vision loss from wet AMD fairly well. If you don't have wet AMD and you have severe dry AMD, right? So if you have mild AMD or early AMD, the vision loss isn't, you can really function pretty well. If you have a severe form of dry AMD, something we call geographic atrophy, where basically you've lost these cells, we really don't have any treatment for that. And we don't have any treatment to even stop the progression to geographic atrophy. So it's a little hard to say which one do you want. You want none. But if you have the wet form, you want to go in as quickly as possible to get treated for it, because you don't want it to progress and get scarring, because we can't really do much about that. Did that make sense? Yeah.
Completely, yes.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you. All right, does anyone have any other questions? Once again, everyone is muted, so please raise your hands or put something in the comments or email chapters@fightingblindness.org. But I think at this point, I'm going to hand it over to, oh, does someone have a comment?
Yeah, this is Renee.
Hi.
Hi. I just had a question. You answered a lot of my questions about people whose RP is not identified, because I've had my genetic testing done and it's not one of the identified genes. But of the technologies that are looking at ways to address that issue in a way that can help restore vision, do you think the CRISPR technology is one of those technologies that will address that?
Yes. I have a lot of hope in the CRISPR technology. And a lot of people working on that right now. So yes.
Okay, thank you.
Ellie, I had a comment.
Please share.
So, Doctor, it's not a question, but just a comment, a thank you for giving us information on such complex material and breaking it down in such a simpler way for us to understand. I've been to a lot of talks about the subject matter, and you really did a great job of really breaking it down so lay people like us understand what you're talking about. So thank you.
Thank you.
I can ditto that, and I feel like a lot of people will echo what I'm saying as well. So thank you again, Bela. That was a wonderful presentation, and we hope to have you again, because that was just perfect. But with that said, Sandy, if you would like to introduce our resource speakers.
Thank you. And can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. I would like to also thank the doctor. I thought that was a very informative speech or presentation, and it's given me a lot of information and clarified a lot of things. I want to introduce myself. My name is Sandy Krems, and I am the resource chair for the Cleveland chapter of Foundation Fighting Blindness. I've had a connection with the foundation since the late 80s, before it was even titled the Foundation Fighting Blindness. It was the RP Foundation. And it was the only place where I could find real solid information about Stargardt's disease, which is the disease that impacts me and several of my family members. In about 2015, I started getting involved in the Cleveland Vision Walk. And now, as resource chair, I'm stepping into a role that really fits my passions, because I have a passion for bringing information and support to people from the moment that they are diagnosed and as they deal with vision loss. And I think there's been a very, very urgent need for that. And I have a strong interest in peer mentoring. So that's my background. And I'd like to introduce today, we're going to have two speakers about community resources. First of all, I'm going to introduce Kenneth Red. He is a librarian from the Ohio Library for the Blind and Physically Disabled. And his branch is located in Cleveland at the Cleveland Public Library. His past work experience involved 11 years in the field of professional sports marketing. And he actually had 3 stints with working for Major League Baseball, 3 Major League Baseball teams. So with that, I'm going to take the time to introduce Ken, and he will provide information for us about the resources that the Ohio Library for the Blind provides for people with retinal degenerative diseases. Thank you. Go ahead, Ken.
Ken, we cannot hear you currently, even though I see your mouth moving. Hold on, let me ask. There we go. I think you're good now. Yep.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, great. Well, we work at the Ohio Library for the Blind and Physically Disabled, and we're located at Cleveland Public Library, but we're actually a regional library for the National Library Service and for the blind and print disabled. So we really aren't a part of Cleveland Public Library because we offer different materials. So it's a little different. First of all, our service is completely free. There is no cost to it. Some of you may know about it already, but just in case I'm speaking to people who don't know about the service, I'll tell you exactly what we do, what we offer, things like that. So first of all, we serve anybody in the state of Ohio that has difficulty reading standard print. And what that means is if you have a vision impairment and you can't read with your glasses, if you have any type of eye disease or anything that makes it difficult to read with your sight-wise, you will qualify. And if you have a physical disability and you can't hold a book or turn a page, you will qualify. If you have a learning disability like dyslexia, you will qualify. So any age group, from 0 to however old you are. We have a lady who actually calls us that's 105. And most of the work that we do is over the telephone, because most of our people can't come into us, because we first of all, we serve the entire state of Ohio. So we're located in Cleveland, and there are people all over the state that can't get to us. So we do everything over the phone. There are a few people who come in because we have a little area that has some assistive technology in there that some people might want to come in and take a course, not even a course, it's a one-on-one training to learn how to use either JAWS, a CCTV, some talking typer things, you learn how to do some brailing, things like that. But that's just it only benefits the people that are near our library. So once you qualify for our service, like I said, everything is free. There is no cost to it at all. And to qualify, you simply have to have a librarian. No, actually, I take that back. You simply have to have a medical professional certify that you actually do qualify. So on our application, it's a 4-page application, but at the bottom of the first page, there's a little section where a medical professional just has to sign their name and give us their phone number and their credentials, and that's all we need. We don't need anything else. But if you have seen a doctor before and you have something written up that shows that you're legally blind or has your whatever it describes what your disability is, that works as well. You don't have to see the doctor. You can just attach that to the application and get that to us, and then you're good to go. Like I said, we have about 15,000 people in the state, and that number sort of stays pretty consistent. The only time it really changes is the last couple of years. The National Library Service did some marketing on TV, on the internet, and on radio. And whenever they do that, the numbers just, people call us right away. If an ad runs on TV or radio, people will pick up the phone and call us. I actually do the outreach at the library, and I feel like what I do is insignificant because it's just me, and I go to church events, I go to senior living facilities, I go to schools, I go anywhere, I go to health fairs, I go to community events, and it's just me trying to tell people about the service. But like I said, I live in Northeast Ohio, so there's a big state out there that we don't get to. So if anyone knows somebody or has a family member that could benefit from a service like this, I'll give you our phone number when I'm done. Just pass that along. And it's not even just our state, but even if you know someone in California or DC, because we're a part of a regional network of 55 different libraries, and we just happen to serve the state of Ohio, but there's one of us in every state, a few different territories. And, so we all do the same thing. We offer the same materials. The books are actually pretty consistent, but everything is produced, and the collection is curated in DC at their collection development level, and they send everything out to the different branches. The things that we offer 4 different mediums. The main one is our audio books and magazines. So if you're interested, we'll send you a player. You can keep that player for as long as you want. Some people have them for 30 years. If you know anything about the service has changed over the years, because I think in the 60s and 70s they used to have these big record players that played these 33 records, and then that transitioned to cassettes. So you had audio cassettes. There was a 4-sided cassette that would go into a player, and you'd have to flip it over and do a lot of toggling, and it was a little bit complicated, but that went away. And in 2009 we came up with an NLS digital player, which actually plays basically their flash drives, their USB technology. And the cool thing about it, there's no moving parts in there, so there's nothing to get twisted, and they don't break very often. They may get corrupted a little bit, but it's usually pretty good. We don't have a lot of problems with it. But with this player, we'll send you the player. You keep the player as long as you want, like I said, and we'll send you the books in these individual plastic containers. They're pretty small, and on the outside of the container is an index card with your name and address. And when you're done, all you have to do is flip that card over, put it back in the little sleeve on the container, and put it in the regular US mail, and it'll come back to us. There's no shipping, no cost at all, because everything that we send out says free matter for the blind on there. So with that, you don't have to pay any type of shipping. So you can keep the books for 6 to 8 weeks. You can keep the player, like I said, indefinitely. If you get it for a week and you don't like it, just put it back in the box and send it back to us, and we'll just cancel the service. It's not a problem at all. So we do that with the books and magazines. We have, I think, let me go back one step. The audio magazines actually come in a on the cartridge as well, but we probably have about 70 different magazine titles, from Reader's Digest to Oprah to different kids magazines to National Geographic. I mean, there are a bunch of them. We even have Playboy on audio. We even have Playboy on Braille, which is crazy to me. But when people say they read it for the articles, they're not lying. But so when we the magazines, we bundle all the magazines on one cartridge. So if you say you wanted 5 magazines, we'll put them all on the same cartridge and send them out to you. You'll read them, and then you'll send it back to us, and then we put the next editions of the magazines on there. Those actually don't come through us. They actually come from Maryland. So we don't actually see those. We can assign them for you, but we don't actually handle those ourselves. As far as the next thing we do, we have a huge Braille collection. We probably have about 22,000 Braille book titles, and they take up a lot of space, and we actually send those out. So you can, we don't teach Braille, but we offer them to people at, the grade 1 Braille, grade 2 Braille, but we don't actually, like I said, we don't teach it, but we can support you if you're trying to learn it. You could actually go to Hadley or some of the online schools to learn how to read it. Actually over the pandemic, when the pandemic started in March of 2019, our library was closed for 2.5 months, and I actually went to hadley.com and actually learned how to read Braille visually. So I only got through grade 1 before we open back up, and unfortunately I didn't go to grade 2, and I've probably lost everything that I've learned. So I want to get back to it one of these days. But in addition to Braille, we offer DVDs with description. So I don't know if anyone likes to listen to movies, but for those who do like movies, these are regular DVDs, but they'll have a English described audio version where you can listen to say for instance, you're watching it with your family, they can watch the regular movie, but whenever there's a point in the movie where there's no dialogue, a narrator will come in and describe what's going on. So it'll help you keep up with the movie. So we probably have 1,500 different titles, and we're usually getting a new infusion every 6 months. I think over the last year, it hasn't really happened because there haven't been a lot of movies in the theaters. But that's an option as well. We don't provide the DVD players, but you can get the movies from us. The last thing we offer are something called playaways, which are small MP3 audio books. Each one is a separate book, and they're about the size of a pack of cigarettes, and actually half the size of a pack of cigarettes. And you just have to plug some headphones into them, and there's a little user interface that allows you to, maneuver your way around the book. Those are probably better for people that have some type of vision because they're smaller buttons, and it may be a little harder to see the interface. But that is an option for people, especially if you want to go on vacation and you don't want to take your player. You can just say, send me, 8 playaways, and you can just throw them in your purse or in a bag. So that it's really helpful. The way the service works is we give you a cutoff number, and usually we start people off at about 8 books. So we'll send you 8 books based on your preferences. And for you to get more, you just have to send books back to us. So the computer is going to try to keep you at your cutoff. So if you sent back 4, it's going to send you 4 to get you back up to that 8. But if you determine that you can use more books and you can handle more, we can send you as many as 50 books. So your cutoff can be 50. So we're not going to send you 50 every week. We're just going to keep you at that 50. So if you had 50 and you sent us 25, you're going to get 25 books back in the mail. So, and believe me, there are a lot of people who do that. And there's some people who've exceeded it. We relaxed the restrictions over the pandemic, and I've seen a couple people who have over 100 books. I don't know what they can do with 100 books, but they'll get them. So there are other options as well. You can actually say, I only want books when I request them, and we call that only on request. So we won't send you anything until you call us and say, you can give us a title, author, a subject, but you only want them when you want them. So we can do that. But for the tech savvy, you can actually go onto our online catalog and you can, peruse our catalog. You can select the books and have them sent out to you, or you can just put them on hold. So that's an option as well. So, there are a bunch of different ways you can use the service. We actually send out large print catalogs. We send out catalogs on a digital cartridge so you can listen to it. You might need somebody to write down the ones that you want, and you can mail stuff into us, mail request in, you can email stuff to us, you can call us, however you want to do it. We're really flexible. We probably have about 6 or 7 people who work up front who actually, all we do is answer calls, and we troubleshoot. We try to help you out with whatever we can do. We do reference calls. If you want to, if say for instance you're in school and you need to do some research on a subject, we can help you with that. So we're pretty flexible. I've been there since 2009, and I love it. I really feel like we're actually helping people, because usually the people that we have are people who are really avid readers who all of a sudden they can't read anymore, and they thought that window was closed, and all of a sudden they find out that this resource is here that can help them read. It's a little different. You're not using your vision, somebody's actually reading to you. And the good thing about our service is we have some really good narrators, and a lot of them are professional narrators. Some of them are actors, and some people actually read books based on who their favorite narrators are, because they love like a person's voice or their delivery. And you can just call us and say, I want my favorite narrator is a guy named Jack Fox, because he's got this really baritone voice and it helps me go to sleep at night. So you can just say, give me anything by Jack Fox. And there are like 500 different books, and he's done everything from Westerns to suspense to nonfiction. So, it's a really good service that the more information you give us, the better we can figure out how to get books that you want. I mean, a lot of times, one thing we do is we have on the application, you'll see that we have exclusions. So you can say, I don't want any strong language. I don't want any violence. I don't want any sex. And you can get any books that don't have that stuff in it. But you can pick and choose. But some of the books that we get now come directly from the publishers, and those are called commercial audio books. And the problem with those is those aren't rated. So we don't have the ability to pull out the books that have the sex, violence, and strong language. So those do slip through the cracks every once in a while. So I just tell people, if you get something that you don't want to hear, either fast forward it or just put it back in the box and send it back to us. But there's no way we can, stop everything. I think right now we probably have over 75,000 physical titles that we can send out, but even more when we consider the books that we can download. For those that are tech savvy, instead of the physical player and the physical cartridges, you can actually go to our digital download site. It's called BARD, B-A-R-D, for Braille and Audio Reading Download. And you can actually download the books directly to your computer, but you have to put them on a flash drive, and you can plug them into the side of the player. For the good thing about BARD is those books are always available. We probably have over 100,000 titles on there, and you don't have to wait in line for the books like you do at a regular library. Those books are available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and you can download them and you can keep them as long as you want to, because they don't go away. I don't know if you've ever used Overdrive at like a public library, if you go to Overdrive, you'll download a book, and I think after about 14 days, they just disappear. But that doesn't happen with our materials. You can keep them for as long as you want. And with Bard, Apple and I think Google, they each created an app. So now for any kind of Apple device, whether it be an iPhone, an iPod, iPad, or any kind of Android device, you can actually download the books directly to those devices. And this is through Bard. It's called Bard Mobile, and it's the best way to use the service. So on my iPhone, I usually probably have about 10 to 12 books on there. You can put as many as you have space, or however many will fit. So once you finish with them, you can keep them, or you can just delete them and go on to the next book. And it's great. When we shut down for the pandemic for 2.5 months, we weren't allowed in the library to send out any material. So the folks that were using the downloading, they were able to continue getting books for the 2.5 months. But for the folks who were getting the physical cartridges, you were stuck with whatever you had. So it was a problem. So I tell people, if you're able to do it yourself, or if you're able to, or if you have a family member or a friend that can do the downloading for you, we just call it a Bard buddy. You can have that person call us, and we can walk them through the setup. So it's really easy to do. We can just walk them through the setup so they can download for you whenever you need the books. So you can have the physical cartridge and the physical player. Plus, some people also do the downloading as well. So they do them both for whatever reason. Some people just like to have that physical cartridge, and the player just to have that. I don't know. I'm not sure, but it's up to you. And one thing about our service, it's very individual, and we have some people that are very picky, and some people who are very like they'll just say send me some westerns, and then we have some people who will say only send me the books that I want, and it's so we can handle both. It's easy, but the easiest thing to do is if you're that picky person, if the more information you can give us, you'll see on our application, it's going to give you a list of about 40 different subjects that you can choose from. Everything from religion, nonfiction to our most popular book is the Bible, which is probably not a surprise. And the reason is I can say it's popular is because it's the one that doesn't come back the most. So we have to create more copies of it, the New and Old Testament, King James Version, because people get it and they don't want to give it back. So that's, we probably have hundreds of those out in circulation. We typically, like for the James Pattersons and the Nora Roberts or the popular authors, we'll get 30 to 40 copies of their new books, but then you have some other people who are not as popular. We may have 2 or 3. One thing the National Library Service allows us to do is it's a national collection. So most of the books are not locally based, or they don't like focus on local authors or things of local interest. But because we do have authors from Ohio and authors from Cleveland, and they might write about subjects like that, we have the ability to add those to the digital download site. But what we have to do is we have to actually get them recorded and narrated, and then we can add them to the collection. And then once we do that, they become available to the entire network. But that's sort of triggered locally, and we have to, unfortunately in Cleveland, we don't have the ability to do the downloading right now because we don't have a facility, or we don't have the we have the microphones, but we don't have a silent place where you don't have all the other ambient noise that can interfere with the recording of a book. But some states like Washington and Arizona, they add hundreds a year to their collection because they're just constantly, they have multiple narrators and they have great, places where they can do the recording. So that hopefully that'll be us one day. But in the near future, we're actually planning to move the library for the blind. I say I'm not planning it, but we're told that they're going to move us down to the main library. So we started in the main library up until, I think the library for the blind started, I think in like 1931, 1932, and it was out at main library until I think 92, and it moved out to Lakeshore it was a girls' Catholic school called Villa Angela. And the library bought that building, but now we're going to move back downtown. And once that happens, that should free us up to do a lot more things, more activities, a lot more programming. The only programming we've actually done since I've been there usually is a monthly book club. And we have something every year we call Family Fun and Learning Day, which we bring patrons who are local out to the library, and we have speakers, we have lunch or breakfast, and just do a bunch of fun stuff, play games and give away stuff. But we've had some pretty good speakers, but we haven't done it since the pandemic. So I'm not sure when they're gonna, give us the ability to do that again. But we're always looking for new stuff to figure out how to get people involved and interest people. We actually have a reading club for kids. We had a teen reading club and one for like high schoolers, and that, we've struggled to get that off the ground. We're trying to figure out how to make something like that work. But going forward, our library, they're actually working on two different things. One, we're working on a refreshable braille display that we can actually send out to people like we do the digital player. So if you can read braille, we'll send you a display, and then you can download the books from Bard and just run them straight through the display, and that'll be free as well. There won't be a cost to that, but we're in the pilot program right now, so they're just sort of just troubleshooting their way through all the issues with the player. But also there's going to be a new generation player that's going to come out. So the current player, the digital player, is probably like 5 inches wide and 8 inches long and maybe 2 inches high. So there's a little size to it, but the new player is actually going to be the size of an iPhone. It's going to look like an iPhone, and you won't need a digital cartridge. You're just going to stream the books directly to the devices. So it'll be like Netflix or Hulu. So you just select the book and it'll start to play. You don't have to download it. It'll just play. The cool thing about it is these new players are all going to be voice activated. So it's going to be like an Alexa, Siri. It'll probably have a different name to it, but you can just say, hey, whatever they call you, play this book, and it'll just play itself. So you don't have to, do a lot of the, fiddling around with it. And the cool thing about our player is whenever you play a book, wherever you stop, the player always remembers. So say, for instance, you're reading a book and you want to take a break and you go to another book and you come back, the player always knows where you are. And we get a lot of issues for people calling us because they'll say, hey, I got a book and it said end of book as soon as I put it in, and I know immediately that they've had the book before, but they just probably don't remember, because whenever you get to the end of the book, that's where it's going to start off when the next time you put it in there. So it could be a different cartridge, but the same title, but the player always remembers where you left off. But there's just a trick that you just press one of the buttons twice and it'll jump back to the beginning. But most people don't know that. But that's basically our service. It's a free service. It's a useful service because it serves a purpose for people who typically can't watch TV, or they're just looking for some form of entertainment. And if you know somebody that could use it, our phone number, I don't know if you can somebody can write this down, but I'll give I'll send Allie some of our applications, or give her some of our brochures, just so in case anyone has any desire for them, she can, you can reach out to her and get them. But our phone number is simple. It's 800-362-1262. So 800-362-1262. So if you have any questions and you want to, talk to me or ask me any questions, just call and I can help you, or whoever answers the phone can help you. We can send you applications. We can send you the physical 4-page application, but if you or somebody is tech savvy, you can actually download our application from our website and you can print it out and fill it out. But you have to fill out a physical application, because you have to actually send it to the medical professional to certify. And that medical professional could be your family doctor, it could be your eye doctor, it could be a social worker. If you live in a facility like a senior living facility or a nursing home, the administrator there can sign off, or a nurse. So there are a bunch of different ways. Even if you live near a public library or any library, librarians are able to certify you as well. That was added in the bylaws from the beginning of the service. So somebody like me can just sign off. But the only person, so you're really not limited. So like I said, you just, look into the service, and if you have any questions, just call me or call one of my coworkers. So I'll open it up to questions if anybody has any questions.
Thank you, Ken. Okay, go ahead, Renee. Is that Renee?
Yes, this is Renee. My question is about the new player. I was going to ask you if they were improving the Bard search engine, but since they're coming out with a new player, I'm assuming it'll have a better search engine than is on the Bard app right now.
No, not that. That's not going to affect the Bard website. Those are two different things. Okay. Now, when you say improve on it, what problems do you have with it?
Is when you try to search for something, there's no way to get quickly to something that you want. So if I do the general search thing and I put in part of the title name, it's, you get a whole list of pages that you have to scroll through to find what it is you're looking for. You got to go, you select a letter, T, everything begins with T. You're scrolling through. To me, it's very cumbersome. It's helpful that once I find what I want, I can save it, but just actually finding what I want can take a very long time sometimes.
Well, my suggestion is the part that says search by author's last name, like the first initial, that doesn't make any sense. I don't even touch that. There's the first box on there, the first search engine says search the collection. That's all I use. So I can search by author, title, subject, but you can also put like an author's last name and part of a title, and it'll, help you get it. But then it'll give you results that'll say, this is what you search for. If you had an author's name, this is the author's name, but it showed up in the author section, or it showed up in the title, or it might have shown up in the annotation. But that search the collection, it definitely works. But you just have to play around with it and just use different ways of searching. Like I said, you put parts of certain things. So you put author's last name plus title plus the subject. It'll get you there a lot easier than that search by author's last name with the initial. So if you're looking for somebody's name, like CJ Box, you're gonna get to the B's, but you have to go through BA all the way to BO before you get to that person, and it's just a waste of time. I'm not even sure why they do it, but I've gotten good at it, but that's because I play around with it a lot.
Okay, I'll have to play around with it a little more. So you're saying that Bard is going to still stay around along with this new device that replaces the bigger player?
Yeah, Bard's not going anywhere. Bard will be the Bard will be there for Bard Mobile. So you can you know, whether you want to download on your device or if you want to download on your computer, Bard Mobile is going to be there. I mean, Bard is going to be there, but with the new player, that player will probably have, it'll be a smartphone, so you can go to the site that it'll be barred if you wanted to physically go look through certain things. Like I said, it'll be voice activated, but there will be the ability to go to the internet or to the site, so you can actually scroll through stuff for those who have vision. Because like I said, we don't just serve the vision impaired, we serve the physical disabilities as well, who can see it, but they just for whatever reason can't hold the book or turn the page.
Okay, well, I love the ability of having Bard to be able to download. That's very, very, very helpful. One other question. Did you say that you do training for JAWS at the library? They do training for JAWS?
Yeah, now if you can either come into a library for the blind, and we're located between Lakeshore and I mean, we're located on 171st and Lakeshore, which is between Euclid and Bracknell. But if you live near one of the CPL or Cleveland Public Library branches like MLK, or on the west side, if you live near Eastman, we have a guy named Brandon who does a training, and he'll meet you at those locations. And we have some assistive technology computer stations that he'll train you on those things, like, JAWS, talking typer. So yeah, he will go around, but you just have to coordinate with him and he'll do it.
Just call that 800 number to do that.
Yeah, what city are you in?
I'm on the east side of Cleveland. I'm in Lyndhurst, so I'm actually closer to.
Yeah, just if you call and just ask for Brandon, and he can. And unfortunately, since the pandemic, I don't think he has been allowed to go out and do one-on-ones, because I haven't done outreach since this started either. But we've been restricted, what ability we can interact with the community. But eventually it's going to open back up. But I would definitely talk to him about it. He's been doing this for a while, so he's good at it.
Thank you.
You're welcome. By the way, I forgot to mention, since the pandemic started, when books come back to us, we quarantine them for 4 days. They did some testing and figured out that the virus lasts for like 3 days on these hard surfaces. So we quarantine them for 4 days. So what you consider is the time that it takes for things to be mailed back to us, plus the quarantine, plus when they come back to you. Hopefully, everything should be okay. We haven't had any setbacks, and luckily, no one in our department has gotten COVID since the pandemic started. So we've been pretty lucky.
I see that Dan Toth has raised his hand, but before you speak, please let me know that there is, let you all know that there is one more speaker. But Dan, I would love for you to ask your question.
All right, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Well, I just want to say that I actually do use the talking book myself, and I'm actually on a road trip right now with the family, and I have it with me. So I do enjoy that service. But I think, I forget the lady's name that was just asking the question, but I also think that the search is kind of clunky. I mean, the website kind of looks, outdated in some ways, but then also I think there's a lot of unneeded information. I can't think of the specific things, but it just seems like there's a lot of information that the average user doesn't even need to know. Like, I just want to get down to, know what the book's about, just a description of what it's about, and, maybe the author. But then there seems to be a lot of unnecessary information also that you have to weed through, essentially. And being visually impaired, it does make it more difficult, I think.
I understand. Now, when you say the information, are you talking about in regards to the book, or all the other settings and the other things that they talk about on on the BARD website, because there is a lot of information on there.
Yeah, I think in some ways it's almost like an overload of information, and some of it, I mean, it might be a librarian such as yourself could probably look at it and know what everything means, but it just seems like a lot of times there's a lot of unnecessary information that you have to weed through. And like I said, I'm on a road trip, so I can't look at it right now, but I just remember looking through it, and it is kind of clunky to use, and the interface, could be updated, but I know that's not on you guys.
Well, hopefully they do it. Unfortunately, like you said, it's not something that we control, and the National Library Service, they really don't take input from us. Like if someone wanted to read a book and it's not in the system, I can't make a suggestion to them because they don't take our suggestions. So we sort of take what they give us. But even though they do give us a wide variety, when it comes to some specific local stuff, we can't control it. But I definitely understand what you said about the clunkiness of it. But like I said, I had to play around with it to get better at it, and just to make it work for me. So if you have a vision impairment, I can understand that it can be a lot more difficult to get through all the minutia on the screen. But yeah, if you have any questions, just give me a call, and I can talk to you about some tips and just some things that work for me, since I do it all the time.
I
Yeah,
can back
thanks.
that statement up. Oh, sorry, I didn't want to interrupt you.
Oh, sorry. I was just gonna ask, is there gonna be like a subscription type service for the DVDs, or are those just by request?
Those are just by request. They're just like the audiobooks and the Braille books. And if you call us, and I can actually send you out a list of the books, the movies that we have available, or I can do it on I can email it to you so you can use JAWS to get through it, or I have a large print copy of it. But you can just call us and say, can you send me anything by John Wayne, or any new mysteries or horror stuff. So you can, however you want to do it, just give us a call and we can get stuff out to you. And it's not the most popular part of our service, so a lot of the materials are available. So we have 2 copies of each, and usually one is a Blu-ray and one is a regular DVD. So if you call us, there's usually something on the shelf.
Okay. Yeah, thanks.
You're welcome.
I think that was all I wanted to say. And well, I guess one other thing, when you were talking about the marketing and everything for your services, I think it was my sister-in-law that actually alerted me to the Talking Book program.
Mhm.
And then, at first I thought the application was a little daunting, 4 pages. But then I got through it, and, got it certified by my eye doctor, and then, got the book. And I think one thing you did, I don't know if you still offer it or not, but I was able to get a pair of headphones with the Talking Book.
Those are available. Yeah, like I said, we work closely with the State Library in Columbus, and what they do is they provide all the equipment. So they send out the players, they send out headphones, they have speakers, they have like a pillow speaker, and different technology that we don't provide. We do the books and they do all the equipment.
And will the new player, will that allow you to change the speed, change the like everything you can on the advanced player, where you can change the speed of it, you can change the tone? Do you know if that's going to be in the new player?
I would be I can't say for sure because I haven't seen it, but I would be surprised if it didn't have that. But if you look at Bard, you can see how you can change the speed and the tone on Bard. So I'm sure you can do it on the new player, because every time I read an audiobook, whether it be on Audible or when I listen to podcasts, they offer those abilities to change speed and tone and things like that. So I would think that's sort of something that's sort of baked into the things right now.
Yeah, and are you guys gonna try and phase out the old talking books, or how are you gonna let users know
Hey,
when the
is
new
this
player's
Dan?
ready?
Dan?
Yeah.
Okay, so just because I want to be respectful to our speaker, we have one more speaker today. Do you mind if I connect you and Ken offline?
Yeah. Yeah, we
Okay,
can communicate over email.
I really hate cutting people off, but I want to make sure
Okay.
I'm respectful to our next speaker. So I definitely will make sure you guys can connect in. So Dan, Ken, please expect that email today.
Okay.
Okay.
I'll send that just to make sure that you are aware of what's available in the library. But Sandy, would you mind introducing
Sure.
our next resource
Right.
speaker?
Yes, I'm very happy to introduce John Naples, and I'm going to cut his introduction a little bit so that he can get right into the meat of the matter. John has been involved with a FFB, a Foundation Fighting Blindness, since the year 2004, and he has participated in Cleveland Vision Walk for 12 years and served as the chairperson of Cleveland Vision Walk twice, in 2015 and 2016. And it's the mission of the Foundation Fighting Blindness that has inspired John to work in his community with the Lions Clubs to help raise funds for the foundation and to work towards funding research, funding treatments, and funding cures. And so, John, I'm going to cut back a little bit on the info that you had in your intro about the Lions Club, because I think you're going to talk about it. So it's my pleasure to introduce John Naples.
All right. Thank you, Sandy. That's totally fine. I appreciate the previous speakers and their topics and everything. So it was very interesting the whole time today. So I am currently the president of the Parma Hills Lions Club. To talk a little bit about the Lions Club, this is a very young club and in the realm of Lions. So the Lions were started in 1917 by a businessman in Chicago who saw the needs of society and rapid industrialization and also as part of World War I, some of the fallout from that. So he was seeing these problems arise, and this is what they were kind of founded to address. And Ohio got their first club in 1920. So the Lions clubs have been in Ohio this is more than 100 years now. And we had our centennial last year. So with the history of the Lions, it was Helen Keller who in 1925 had a speech in Cedar Point, Ohio. So it's probably Sandusky now. But at that point, that speech is where she actually made the statement of charging the Lions as knights for the blind in the crusade against darkness. The Lions had already started to do some things for blindness in like 1923. And they had started a juvenile Braille literacy campaign. They had a magazine that continued on. They moved into they took on the additional child welfare cause in 1934. In 1954, they made that monthly Braille literacy, juvenile Braille literacy magazine. They made it a monthly magazine. So it's been it's been a continued growth in development for the Lions Club. They initially gave their first, it was like a $1,200 donation, and it was in the I want to say 1950s, that they gave a donation for vision research to a doctor at the Ohio State University. So even as far back as 60 years ago, almost 60 or 70 years ago, that there's been the funds being raised by Lions for blindness campaigns. So it makes the relationship with the Foundation Fighting Blindness very easy so as far as this, there's different levels. So everything is the clubs are local, but there's also state like governors and such, lieutenant governors, but everything kind of operates on the local club. So these governors will come around to the local clubs, to the regional zone meetings. So they're normally meetings are once a month. Okay. For our particular club, currently we're meeting once a month at 168 Optical in Parma. And what we're doing is we're basically meeting in a conference room there. But that's also our collection point for glasses in Parma. And I'm gonna try to chat here to the address for the contact for everybody. All right, let's see. All right, well, I'm gonna get the information so that you can contact our club. And we do have a membership committee right now. Our membership committee member, our leader is Maureen Connors, according to and that her email address is on our website as well. And what we, I'll provide that to everybody as well. With that, it would allow you just to email her, and then we would probably ask you for your address and we'll mail you out an application. So what we're, as a club, the things that we're discussing right now are things such as starting a fundraiser for Parma Hills or for Parma's youth baseball. So it's something that's it doesn't have to be funded till next year, but we kind of have an idea of trying to fund a youth baseball team for each age group. That's one of our current goals in the community. And to do that, we have to contact our whether it's going to be a restaurant to have the fundraiser at, and then we want to make sure that we're talking with the community leaders, the recreation department of the city, and possibly the mayor's office there in Parma, just to make sure that they're on board with us, raising funds for this project for them. And as far as with our relationship in the past with the foundation, we raised in 2020 we did a fundraiser in January, and we raised money for that for the vision walk, and we don't and through our club alone it was $500. So what we're trying to do is work with our other clubs to get them on board with the fundraising for the foundation. Now, that could be done in various ways, but one of the first things is that we need to speak to the other clubs. That was really damaged during the pandemic, because people were not meeting. There was a lot of, there was some virtual meetings, but there was definitely not a whole lot of space to get the majority of the members together and have a conversation on specific topics. So moving forward from 2021 into 2022, it is one of our main goals to fundraise for the causes that the Lions Clubs have traditionally been a part of. Now, the Lions Clubs as a whole are a volunteer organization based on, and they are basing their what they work on just on needs in the community. They have a saying of where there's a need, there's a lion, and that is known in the local community as well as around the state, the country, and international. Now they started. They have a Lions Club Foundation, Lions Club International Foundation as well. So if there's international causes that are of interest to you, many of them are actually funded through that foundation. Whether there's there was a hurricane, or I'm sorry, the hurricanes in Louisiana recently. They did make a call out for clubs to make donations for that. They also did an individual call for donations to Haiti when there was a recent earthquake as well there. We have as Parma Hills Lions, we participated in two larger fundraising events. One was with an organization called Rise Against Hunger. They basically we sold candy bars to raise money to then buy meal packs, and then the meal packs were then shipped to countries or a country that where hunger was actually a need at that time. There was the other one of the things that we have done this year is there was a plastic bag, like the grocery bags, a campaign to get 500 pounds. We were hoping for 500 pounds of grocery bags from each club, but I know that those things are pretty light. But if each club with the bags were actually used to make park benches, so it was a way of actually recycling. So it was a recycling project, and they wanted them to be at parks around the state, so that is actually something that I would hope that is continuing, but I haven't really gotten any acknowledgement that there is more need of plastic bags at this time. But we have definitely resumed the eyeglass donation collections, and they will be distributed as quickly as we can to the proper personnel. So in our local community, Lions Clubs are also at St. Vincent Medical Hospital on East 22nd, and then various places throughout the Cleveland area. So we are in Parma. As for the Parma Club, we're a part of the Ohio 3 district, and so with that, we kind of have, I believe that we have North Royalton kind of going down towards Akron, and in our general region there. There's a few different regions in Ohio. Ohio is a district of its own, known as 13. So if you see some information online, but if you searched Parma Hills Lions Club contact information, you would get our it's an e-clubhouse. It's e-clubhouse.org is the website, and it'll bring you to our contact page. Some of the information needs to be updated yet. So we are currently meeting on the first Wednesday of every month, and at 7 p.m. We are offering virtual as well as in person, for the most part, meetings. The only time that we've gone all virtual sense is when it's just more convenient for our members, and that we will just meet virtually. So, but the in-person meetings are available as well, and so we should have a fundraiser coming up in the next month and a half, and that is for the youth baseball program in Parma. So there is membership is an application. It's pretty brief. There's dues that are paid once a year. Does depend on the club that you join, how much the dues are, I believe, and part of that does go to fund the Lions Club International Foundation. So you are making a difference no matter what. There's definitely ways of getting involved throughout the state as well as throughout the country, and we have zone meetings as well. So we'll meet once a month as a club. There'll be other opportunities to meet together. If you are looking for, if you're looking to do fundraising, you can't have a fundraiser without having fun. So we're trying to make that as fun as we possibly can, and you'll see that excitement. Hopefully, you'll see that excitement come out in our actual events when we have them. Looking forward to an upcoming year of meeting new people and having new members and such. So and then supporting the foundation with their cause.
Hey, John, do you mind
Yes.
if I, so we're coming up at the hour. Do you mind
Yep.
if I share your email for just anyone interested in
Yeah,
joining the Lions
absolutely.
Club?
Please.
Okay.
Please do.
Okay. I think,
Yeah.
I mean, if anyone has any questions, please email chapters@fightingblindness.org. But I am so glad that we had a full 2 hours. If anyone, as I mentioned, if anyone has any questions, please email chapters@fightingblindness.org or email me if you have my email, asorg@fightingblindness.org. But we are so happy to provide this Cleveland speaker series, whether it be virtual or not. And we're going to continue to provide that. So thank you so much for joining us today. And as mentioned, this is recorded, and we'll get this to you next week. And have a great rest of your weekend. Thank you so much. Bye, everyone.
All right.